The Mass Effect series is often held up as a great example of story in video games. It's one of the best space operas that exists in modern gaming. With Mass Effect Andromeda soon to be released, I want to go back to where it all started and look at how Mass Effect's story captured our imaginations and solidified its place as a classic of modern gaming. I remember when I first finished Mass Effect 3, and my immediate thought was to go back and play through the whole trilogy again, but I got about this far before I said nope and quit out of there. Mass Effect 1's visuals do not stand the test of time. Between the gnarly textures and the fairly low resolution, it's not exactly a feast for the eyes that it once was.
I get the feeling you don't like me.
But it makes up for this with things that aren't so dependent on technology, mainly with the cinematography. The cutscenes in this game are so well directed that even with the dated visuals, they still actually make you feel the same level of awe. This is apparent from the very start. The game opens by tracking Shepard, your character, as they walk up the bridge. Between the cinematography and the film grain effect over the top of everything, the game wears its influences on its sleeve. It's trying to feel like a film. But with just that opening scene, you know that you're onto something special. The camera follows Shepard as they move forward with confidence and purpose, passing by a bridge that feels like it came out of a slicker Star Trek. The music swells, the camera swirls, we see Shepard and we think, oh, that looks nothing like the face I picked! Just that opening tells us so much about the character already. How they move, how they're dressed, where they are, and the way that people react to them. We already know that we're dealing with a cool customer here before they say a single word. The premise is soon laid out before you. You're on a mission to pick up some alien artifact and have a Space 007 on board, because of course nothing could possibly go wrong in this mission. The game has a bunch of exposition to throw at you, but the way it does it is very clever. Rather than having Shepard straight up ask about the things the player is interested in, as is common in so many other games, most of the things Shepard asks are phrased to show that Shepard actually already knows a lot of the exposition that a character is going to receive.
I thought the Protheans vanished 50,000 years ago.
Their legacy still remains.
It's a very cosmopolitan setting, and having to play a character run around asking, "But what's an Elcor?" in a galaxy where everyone already knows the answer to that question would be ridiculous. Instead, Shepard demonstrates knowledge of the setting, and they ask questions when what they're being told is in conflict with what they know. It's a fantastic way of placing Shepard as a resident of this galaxy, rather than just a mouthpiece for the player, and it also makes sure that the dialogue flows naturally, and feels like a conversation rather than a conversation tree. So, you reach your destination, and in a completely unexpected twist, something's gone wrong! A red shirt dies, the super spy gets shot, and Shepard gets the entirety of alien Twitter downloaded into their face. And thus is sparked a grand adventure that will eventually decide the fate of the entire galaxy. But that's not immediately apparent. For the vast bulk of the game, you're chasing down Saren, who is basically the Sean Bean to your Pierce Brosnan. Right out of the gate, he's established as the villain, sometimes to a truly moustache-twirling degree. And what is critical to the storytelling is that the focus of the plot is always on your direct conflict with Saren. It's you and your elite crew versus him and his army of robots and goons. The game constantly reminds you of this.
Saren is a traitor to the Council.
Saren must have made him quite the offer.
That's Saren's voice.
Her mother's working with Saren.
Saren's a threat to every species in the galaxy.
Saren.
Saren.
Saren. Saren.
Saren.
This is critical, because the entirety of the central plot is laid upon the foundation of your beef with Saren. When you find out about his army of mind-controlled dudas, it's still you versus Saren. When it's revealed that he's trying to summon an armada of giant death locusts, it's still you versus Saren. Even after he literally shoots himself in the face, it's still you versus Saren. Mass Effect has a very rich setting and a fairly detailed plot, and Saren provides a human face, well, a Turian face, for the forces against you. And he's actually a really cool villain for 3 main reasons. Firstly, he's an effective villain. Unlike in, say, Dragon Age Inquisition, where you are constantly outmaneuvering the bad guy and ruining his day, here, Saren is always a step ahead. You're constantly playing catch-up to his schemes right up until the very last moment, which is a pretty good reason to stop wasting your time on interviews. Secondly, he is convinced that what he's doing is right. At some point he found out that a race of killer calamari was gonna eat everything and everyone, with no way to stop them, and he figured, well, if I'm really nice to them, maybe I can get them to not eat everything?
But if we work with the Reapers, if we make ourselves useful, think how many lives can be spared.
He is actively trying to save the galaxy in his own way. His plan just has a couple more tentacles involved. Thirdly, he acts as a reflection of Shepard, especially if you're playing Dick Shep. Both of you are registered space cowboys. Both of you have minimal accountability, and both of you are trying to save the galaxy, and are willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. Both of you have long, distinguished service records. Both of you have blue girlfriends and fly around in a cool ship. Both of your names start with an S, and yes, I am reaching now. The point being, the more you learn about Saren, the more sympathetic he becomes, as you realize that he actually has good intentions and is being manipulated to do terrible things, to the point where you can actually convince him of this through play. He ends up being quite a well-realized character, and he's not the only one. Although basically everyone accompanying you is a card-carrying badass, they each have a human side, no matter how alien they might appear. One that they are sometimes eyebrow-raisingly quick to share.
You trying to make me cry, Shepard?
I suppose trusting someone with your life makes it a bit easier to share intimate details with them. Each of them has a world to them beyond the fact that they're gun dudes with guns. They have families, they have disabilities, they're shunned by their people, or they've given up. Or they're gun dudes who really want to gun more dudes. It's remarkable how attached you get to these characters, and that is most evident when the game takes one of them away. Halfway through the game, your team's been split up, and 2 of your people are under heavy fire, and you can only go to save one of them. When I played through it again to record all this footage, I decided that I was going to do things differently so I could see the broader range of the game. But when this moment came up, and I had to let Ashley die, I just thought, but what about her sisters? Sarah and Prue? Who's gonna read poetry to her father's grave and feed her dog buttons and wanted to peck cactus and all that? Sorry, Caden. Time to go. My initial trepidation about how the game had aged vanished once I started interacting with the characters again. The faces and animations may be dated, but have a lot of detail and character to them. And though they don't have a great deal of expression, the fantastic voice acting makes up for it. The dialogue feels very conversational and flows naturally, except when it doesn't. I think I had the exact same conversation with Liara about 3 times throughout the game when she kept swooning around me. But now that I think about it, maybe I just wasn't picking up on her hints. What's so important about the characters being so good is that after Saren dies, the characters have to carry 2 more games without a central antagonist. And I don't count the Elusive Man as filling the same role as Saren because he's a small part of a much bigger picture. Mass Effect 2 and 3 are both larger games than the first one, and they are carried entirely on the backs of the characters that join you here. I didn't call it a space opera lightly. While the scope of Mass Effect's plot may be vast, being a tale of an intergalactic war for survival, the focus is always on Shepard and the people around them. It's a story about fighting space calamari, but it's always told through the interactions of Shepard and their friends and enemies. And these characters allow us to deliver a vast and detailed setting without dumping reams of exposition on us. It starts off with a narrow scope. You're on a human ship, you're checking out a human colony, and there's a couple of aliens floating around, but everything's pretty easy to grasp. After that, more and more of the aliens and their various cultures and quirks are introduced, but generally in a way that's very relatable and easy to understand. It gradually expands the scope of the game and doesn't overwhelm you with the setting. Even the myriad alien races, while they each have plenty of depth, can be boiled down to warrior race, space cops, blue alien babes, singing jellyfish, and the literal best thing to come out of anything ever.
Genuine enthusiasm. I delight in telling the history of my people.
And the fact that Shepard is aware of these species, if not everything about them, places you in the setting rather than observing it from the outside. Indeed, the game puts a lot of effort into making Shepard appear to live in that galaxy. And one of the ways it does that is that people know them.
You're Commander Shepard, the hero of Eden Prime. I am so honored to meet you.
In classic RPG fashion, everyone goes to you with their problems. But the fact that you are a known galactic hero, to the point where people recognize you on the street, justifies that. It's a justification that BioWare has used before and would use again, like in Dragon Age Inquisition, where everyone recognized you, though there the common people didn't really have news programs or Facebook or any real way to know what you look like. But the point being that having people know you connects you to the setting and invests you more deeply in it. And that investment in the setting is critical. Why? Because the fate of the galaxy is at stake. And I know plenty of games where the fate of the galaxy was at stake, and I never finished a game, because in that whole galaxy there was not one thing I cared about. If you say, "Space Calamari, you're gonna eat the whole universe!" you can't expect the player to be on board with just that. However, if you say, "Space Calamari, you're gonna eat the whole universe, including the L-Core!" then hell yeah, I'm on board. Nobody touches my emotionally eloquent elephants. The whole galaxy is far too vast and nebulous a concept. And people generally just don't think on that scale. You need to connect the player to some part of it for it to matter. Whether that be a character, a place, or an idea.
Why do you explain what you're about to say?
Our people communicate less through words and more through sentence-like movements. Plainly, we discovered our vocal expression was not enough to convey the feelings of our conversations to other species.
If you make the player care about something and then threaten to take it away, then the player is hooked. And Mass Effect has heaps of things for you to care about. There are so many characters, species, and concepts for you to get attached to that it's okay if some of them don't land. Don't like Kaidan? No problem, there's plenty more to choose from. Hell, we'll even let you kill him. And once the player cares about the galaxy, cares about the people in it, you can just roll out the calamari tray and they'll just tuck into it. The visuals and gameplay are both heavily dated, but once I started to sink back into the galaxy and spend time with the characters, I realized that overall the game really does hold up. It works well with the resources that it has, and the cinematography of peak moments in the story help to convey the impact, the tragedy and heroism. The awesome moments were still awesome. The emotions were still high, and the ending was as grand and powerful as I remembered it. Mass Effect 1 conjured up an incredible galaxy that really did capture our imaginations and set up for an epic trilogy. Sure, it's not perfect. Often in conversations, you'll choose between multiple flavors of saying the same thing, which will have Shepard actually deliver the exact same line. And some areas take forever to get through, which just grinds the whole pacing to a halt. But looking back on it, it's not those moments you remember. You remember those grand moments of triumph and loss. You remember the characters that went on this journey with you. You remember the peaks of the story that has been brought before you. And I, for one, remembered those for years after the fact. There's a lot to be learned by looking back at Mass Effect 1, and a lot of fun to be had playing back through it. And with Andromeda coming out tomorrow, here's hoping that they can make the same lightning strike again.